This is Sean Hayes here for a sports and exercise psychology presentation. Let me ask you a question. Why are more and more Australians getting overweight each year? Why do we have this rising trend in overweight and obese people? And just to give you an idea of what I mean by that, let me bring in some statistics. Give me a sec. Geez, how heavy is this? Looking at these statistics here, I think you can get a better understanding of why I had trouble pulling in that load. So, the number of obese people, the percentage of obese people has indeed risen. In 1995, it was 18.7% of the national population. In 2012, it was 27.5%. So that's a 9% increase. Now, that doesn't sound like much of an increase at first. In fact, some people might even say 9%. Why are you making a big deal out of a small increase? And that sounds fair enough. It doesn't sound too significant until you take into account the size of the Australian population. In 1995, the population was 18.7 million people. In 2012, it rose up to about 23 million. So now that 9% increase starts to become more pronounced. To put it in simpler terms, for every 3 Australian adults today, 2 of them would be obese. Now granted, these are estimations and not exact numbers, but it does put more perspective into this rising trend in obesity rates. But this is at a national level, so why don't we zoom in a little bit closer to home here in New South Wales? And what do the statistics say here? In Western New South Wales, 79% of people there are either overweight or obese, in comparison to Eastern Sydney's 49%. So we have this overweight and obesity problem, but how can we go about fixing it? Well, the most commonly used solution to this, as people would say, is you need to eat less and exercise more. Come on over and let's discuss some solutions. So we know that in order to lose weight, you have to eat less calories and you have to exercise more to burn more calories. Sounds simple enough. Here's the problem. If it's that simple, why do we have this rising trend in obesity? You can't simply give people the how-to. You have to give them reasons to change. You have to give them motivate them to elicit behavioral change. And this is a key word here, motivation. Okay, so people need to be motivated to elicit change. When they're motivated, then they start to make changes to their lifestyle. And when they're motivated, they can eat less and exercise more. And we can divide this motivation into 2 more parts. We have negative motivation here, where people are motivated based off negative emotions, such as fear. They're scared of something that will happen. Maybe they'll lose something. And we can further divide it into negative intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic, maybe they'll lose something. They could lose a job or they lose something. And intrinsic can be where they don't feel good about themselves internally. And this is a common case you see where people will change themselves because they're not happy with how they look. Then you have over here positive motivation, where people are motivated by positive feelings because they want to, for example, intrinsic, maybe they want to feel better about themselves. Often when people lose weight, they do feel happy about themselves, which sounds great, but then what about extrinsic? Where's the positive extrinsic motivation? It's not like you get a reward for losing weight. I don't know about you, but I haven't heard many overweight people being given a pot of gold by a leprechaun as a reward for weight loss. So we're missing something here, extrinsic motivation. let's try a different approach towards fixing this issue. Forgive my crude drawings, but this is the yin-yang symbol. I think most people are familiar with it. Two halves in opposition, but are also needed in order to exist. One cannot exist without the other. So you could have day and night, light and dark, good and evil. You get the idea. Another way I like to put it is like this, where you have two extremes and problems arise when you go to one extreme or the other. So for example, again, relying on one method or the others, or as with people being overweight, you have some people who are in fact overweight, so they have too much fat, but then you also have people who are skinny, who are underweight. Both extremes present a problem, but we can find some optimal results in the middle. So we're looking for the middle ground for a moderate approach. So let's try using this approach here where we don't rely on one extreme or the other, but rather try and take the best of both worlds into here. So we include negative and positive motivation in order to get people to eat less and exercise more. For this particular presentation, we'll just focus on exercising more. Let's use an office setting as an example for how we can apply this. And I like the office setting because more and more people are working in office-related jobs where they're sitting on a computer, they're staring at a computer screen, and they're not moving. They're not moving. This is an extreme. They're not moving enough. So, how can we apply this to an office setting? Most people who work these jobs will typically say, I don't have time to go down to the gym, I don't have time to walk because of my job. Okay then, let's bring the exercise, the training sessions to the office. And what we could do in this program is get them started on a strength training program. And I chose strength training program for a reason. So, at the start of this 16-week program, you have the office workers take pictures of themselves in their underwear, back to front, yeah, like this, like this. Then they have to take their measurements, so their waist and their weight. You then set up a social forum where all of the workers have to post their pictures of themselves as well as their measurements and track it on a weekly progress. So afterwards, every male worker who's involved has to put in a $100 wager into a collective bag. So you're setting up a wager amongst all the workers. What this does at the beginning is it sets up negative motivation, specifically extrinsic motivation, because now they're exposed. Everyone can see what they look like, and if they don't do their job at their job, it could have negative consequences. So right off the bat, we have negative extrinsic motivation, but also negative intrinsic motivation, because with that group pressure, that exposure and shame, they're going to feel much more self-conscious about themselves. That will motivate them to start the strength training. And now this is where the magic begins. So they start the strength training programs, they go to the sessions, they consistently lift the weights, and about 4 weeks into the program, they'll start to notice that they've been consistently making progress on their lifts, so they're getting stronger. This is only about 4 weeks in, but now we're transitioning from negative motivation towards positive motivation, positive intrinsic, because now they're starting to feel good about themselves because they're making progress on their lifts in just a few weeks. And extrinsic because, well, they're getting stronger in their lifts. And what can also happen at the end of this program is a contest to decide who has achieved the best results. So at the end of the 16-week program, everyone has to show how much progress they've made in the training, and this is assessed based on fat loss, the amount of fat they've lost, how much stronger they've gotten on their lifts, and their overall physique. So we had an extrinsic goal right there at the end, but if we go back to 4 weeks into the program, they'll start, not only will they start feeling better about themselves because they're making progress, but now the extrinsic goal at the end, they start to see it's more achievable, so they keep going with the sessions. Now, let's fast forward to 8 weeks into the program. Now, not only have they gotten stronger on their lifts, but as they've been checking their measurements, they'll start to see their waist circumference has been dropping, so their body fat is dropping, they're getting stronger on their lifts, and their physique is improving. And what are the criteria for who is the best in the office? Fat loss, strength gains, and overall physique. Now, not only are they improving their lifts, but their physique is improving, so now that further motivates them, not just intrinsic base, but extrinsic base, because now the external goal is more achievable. So because the workers are much more motivated now, we've incorporated the 4 aspects of motivation. We had negative, intrinsic, extrinsic to start them off, and then we have the positive intrinsic and extrinsic rewards to keep them going. What's going to happen is by the time they get to the end of the program, they'll feel much healthier, they'll have better physiques, they'll feel better about themselves, and if the workers themselves are healthier, then that can lead to greater productivity for the businesses. And if the business has greater productivity, then, well, that's good news for them. But then other businesses may start to notice that, hey, this company has been doing better because of such a program, they've been getting more productive. So now other businesses will want to jump on this program in order to improve their productivity. So what started once as one company in just one city or suburb can spread out across the state. All of this sounds really good, but there are several flaws to it. And what I highly encourage listeners is, going back to my model here, is I encourage you to neither accept nor reject what I say. I don't expect you to accept anything that I say right off the bat, but I also encourage you not to reject anything I say immediately. Rather, focus on the middle. Think critically about different approaches. That's all I have for this presentation. This is Sean Hayes.